Hi, everybody. David Brian Miller here. I'd like to share with you a little essay I've written for 4th of July, also known as Independence Day. How can Americans declare independence now? The abuses that many American citizens in the 21st century endure make the complaints of the revolutionary American colonists of 1776 seem frivolous. Instead of trying to cope with quaint concerns such as the taxation of tea without representation, Americans now face very frightening threats to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Elements within the government and other allied special interest groups have developed technologies of surveillance and social control never before seen, and they have also developed mind control technologies, including techniques to artificially induce symptoms of severe mental illnesses in whomever they target. They have apparently targeted most of the office holders at all levels in the federal, state, and local governments. Indeed, our current representatives in government do seem to be suffering from severe and persistent mental illnesses. The majority of legislators, executives, and judges in the United States in recent decades have proven themselves to be totally out of touch with the reality and very psychotic, judging by the enormous quantity of absurd legislation they have enacted and upheld and actually tried to enforce on real human beings. They also apparently suffer from numerous other psychiatric conditions. They often seem to entertain numerous fixed delusions, including delusions of grandeur, and they seem to be plagued by hysterical and irrational fears and suffer severe obsessions, and all these things find their way into legislation and court rulings. Worse yet, there are obviously also sociopaths involved in all of this, given the sadistic and injurious penalties that they seek to impose on citizens who violate the unrealistic and absurd laws that they enact and enforce. Millions of Americans now have their lives controlled by a very criminal justice system, and almost anyone can face years of punishment and lifelong stigmatization for nonsensical and trivial offenses. While claiming for themselves absolute authority and unquestionable moral and scientific competence to examine and micromanage every aspect of the private lives of all human beings, they are often not very informed at all about the matters that they seek to address through legislation. Most legislation is suggested to them by representatives of special interest who seek to enhance their own wealth, power, and prestige at the expense of everyone else. In addition to the usual military-industrial interests, law enforcement interests, and associated behavioral health interests seem to be very influential now. While participants in today's representative government are superficially very polite and cordial, and their gatherings are very orderly, dignified, and formal, it is precisely that atmosphere that apparently makes them very suggestible and susceptible to hypnotic influences. They are easily duped by special interests who entertain them with clever slogans and sensational emotional appeals. They are spoon-fed disinformation and propaganda on a frequent and consistent schedule, and are manipulated and conditioned to always have an appetite for more of the same. Legislators' thoughts are entrained by hypnotic operators from the law enforcement community and by pseudoscientists from the so-called behavioral health industries who want more and more tools provided to them so they can achieve total control over the behavior and thoughts of all human beings. These operators share a desire to neutralize any individuals who either by nature or by their effort impede that goal in any way. A very criminal justice system is now entrenched in American society, and its sociopathic representatives are often found feeding the fears and delusions of the psychotic legislators so as to get whatever they want all the time. What they want is unbridled coercive power so they can do as they please and so they can make or break anyone they choose to, whether to achieve a specific goal on a whim or even for sadistic pleasure. To seem progressive, a phony medical model of human thought and behavior has been introduced by the behavioral health industries to offer a seeming contrast to the very criminal justice system's archaic model of human behavior, but in reality actually augments and enhances the very criminal justice system's model. Now individuals must not only struggle to conform to the whims of psychotic legislators and sociopath law enforcement entities, but they are also now being forced to submit to coercive chemical control and behavioral micromanagement by practitioners of dangerous pseudosciences such as psychiatry, psychology, social work, counseling, etc. Everything is now geared toward controlling behavior so as to satisfy authorities and elites instead of being focused on creating a society that accommodates each unique individual and allows for improving the quality of life of each individual. How can a free and open society possibly survive? How can an ideal libertarian democracy as initially envisioned in 1776 ever be realized now? Food for thought on Independence Day from David Bryan Miller. Bye.